All right, ready to dive deep. Today we're looking into two of TV's most captivating killers, Joe Goldberg from You and Dexter Morgan from Dexter. They both kill them, but how different are they really?
I think that's what makes this so interesting. You have two serial killers, but their motives are completely different. Joe, he kills for love, as messed up as that is. And then you have Dexter, driven by this, primal urge.
Yeah, this is a battle of passion versus compulsion, like a dark mix of love, obsession, and murder. So we're going to take a look at their psychology, their methods, and then the big question, who would win in a fight?
Right, so let's start with Joe Goldberg, the guy who will write you poetry and then lock you in a basement.
Oh yeah, the glass cage. It's creepy, but kind of genius in a twisted way. But for those who haven't seen You, this is how Joe keeps his obsessions close.
It's classic possessive obsession, honestly. It's what you see in stalkers and abusers. Their idea of love is so distorted, thinking control equals affection.
Like with Beck in season 1. Joe kills Benji, her friend, because he sees him as a rival.
It's chilling how he uses Benji's peanut allergy to make it look like an accident.
Right. I mean, talk about meticulous planning, all to control the situation.
And that's what makes him so unsettling. He's charming, vulnerable, and then bam, he does something horrific.
And don't forget, he frames Peach, Beck's friend, for Beck's death. He'll go to any lengths to protect his fantasy.
Exactly. And he never takes responsibility. Always the victim. Always justifying his actions. Okay, so that's Joe, the dangerous, love-struck stalker. Now for Dexter Morgan. A totally different kind of killer.
He's a forensic analyst. Kind of ironic since he's also a serial killer. But I've heard he has this code.
Yeah, that's what separates him from a typical murderer. He only kills other murderers.
So not just a random killing spree.
No, this code, he got it from his adoptive father. It's Dexter's attempt to control his dark passenger. That's what he calls his urge to kill.
Like a hunger he has to satisfy.
Right, and like Joe, he's methodical. Plans his kills, kill rooms, disposing of the bodies, everything organized. The ice truck killer case, that shows it perfectly. Dexter hunted him down, lured him in, and then boom.
So they're both meticulous. But Joe is driven by emotion, and Dexter is more, well, it's like an addiction.
Exactly. Joe wants to control his environment, specifically the person he's obsessed with. Dexter wants to control his urges.
So Joe is like a Shakespearean tragedy of love and jealousy, and Dexter's a cold, calculated chess game. Both captivating,
Yeah.
but in very different ways.
Which leads to the ultimate question. If these two went head-to-head, who would win?
The manipulator driven by emotion, or the calculated killer with a code. This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, who would come out on top? So let's get into the kill count, shall we? Joe's a little tricky because his victims are usually linked to his obsession at the time. It makes it less consistent than Dexter.
True. I mean, by the end of season 4, his body count's got to be around 12, give or take. But it's not just killing to kill like Dexter. It's always about removing obstacles or protecting his idea of love, right?
Exactly. Usually people connected to his love interest. Like rivals, Benji, Peach, anyone he sees as a threat to his little world. Remember Elijah? Candace's boyfriend? Joe shoves him off a building just because he felt threatened.
It's so crazy how fast he flips from, charming book guy to ice-cold killer.
That impulsiveness, yeah. Acting on emotion leads to mistakes. Now, Dexter, whole different story. We're talking over 100 kills easy. Decades of this. It's systematic. Taking out murderers he thinks deserve it.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's a big difference. So Dexter's like a seasoned pro and Joe's more of an amateur, but could that actually work in Joe's favor? Like Dexter's so rigid, maybe Joe's chaos is an advantage if they ever,
If they came face to face, you're thinking Joe's spontaneity could catch Dexter off guard.
Yeah, like the glass cage with Benji. That was pure desperation, but also kind of brilliant.
True. And Peach in the Woods. Brutal but effective.
But Dexter's adaptable, right? He analyzes his victims, their routines, weaknesses. The code seems strict, but he can bend it when he needs to. He's evaded capture for years, right? He's not an idiot. He's had to be resourceful to get away with so much. Okay, so what about physically? Dexter seems so in control, strong. Joe's more brooding.
Yeah. Dexter is in shape, knows how to fight, and he's comfortable with weapons. He's a machine, basically.
Like actually terrifying if you met him in real life.
Yeah.
But Joe's not helpless. Remember the fight with Ron in the bookstore basement?
Good point. He held his own against a bigger guy, and he uses his surroundings. That glass cage wasn't just a prison, it was strategy.
So maybe the lack of formal training works for him. He's scrappy, unpredictable.
Absolutely. Doesn't play by the rules. Dexter wouldn't expect that, but Dexter's experience is huge. He's taken down guys way bigger than him Without breaking a sweat, it seems like. He's a predator through and through.
So we've got the psych stuff, the body count, how strong they are. They both have their strengths. But for this showdown, don't we need to look at weaknesses too? Everyone's got a crack in their armor.
Oh, absolutely. Especially with these two. They're master manipulators. So finding those weaknesses, that's the key. With Joe, it's his obsession. He gets so fixated on these women, he forgets everything else.
Yeah, his heart, or I guess his twisted version of it, is his downfall. Like when Beck started pulling away, he went nuts. Possessive, jealous, violent. Those emotions get in the way.
Someone like Dexter would see that right away. He'd push Joe's buttons, use it against him.
So Joe's weakness is basically love.
Yeah.
Twisted love, but still. What about Dexter? That's your dark passenger. Gotta have some skeletons, right?
Oh, of course. Dexter might seem like a cold machine, but even he craves connection. It clashes with how he pretends to be.
Like with Deb, his sister. That was always messy. He loved her, but it went against his code. Tough choices. And Leela, the arsonist, she almost exposed him. She saw through his act.
Exactly. Connection. He needs it, but it makes him vulnerable. Joe's perceptive. He's good at manipulating people. He could use Dexter's feelings against him.
So Joe, passionate, impulsive. Dexter, methodical but conflicted. This is getting intense, like a chess match where any move could be checkmate. But how do we factor in those weaknesses and say who would actually win? So we've looked at how they think, how they kill, even how many they've killed. But to really figure out who'd win, let's put them in different places. Because where they are matters.
Right? Oh, yeah, definitely. The environment could totally change the outcome. Let's say 3 different scenarios just to mix it up.
Okay, love it. Scenario 1. Smack dab in the middle of New York City. Crowds, noise, places to hide, places to hunt. Who does better there?
I think Joe might have an edge there, actually. Blends in, manipulates things, disappears in a crowd. He kind of thrives on chaos.
But wouldn't all that mess with Dexter's whole meticulous thing? Cameras everywhere, people watching, no control.
Yeah, true. Dexter likes things quiet, isolated, where he can control everything. But he's evaded capture in Miami. That's pretty busy, too. So he can adapt when he has to.
So maybe Dexter wouldn't totally freak out in the city, but Joe knows the streets, you know? The people. The vibe. Isn't that an advantage?
Maybe. But Dexter's observant. He'd figure it out quick. Find patterns, use the city to his advantage. Subways, abandoned buildings, even the crowds themselves as cover.
That's pretty creepy, honestly, using all that anonymity. Okay, maybe a tie for round 1, then let's switch it up. Scenario 2. A cabin in the woods. Isolated, quiet, perfect for Dexter, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. This is Dexter's territory. No witnesses. He can set things up just how he likes. It's like a giant kill room.
Joe, though, in the middle of nowhere? I just don't see it. Wouldn't he get super paranoid? Make dumb mistakes? He's all about manipulating people, not surviving in the wild.
He's out of his depth there. Dexter, though, he'd be comfortable. He's good with his hands, probably knows how to hunt, set traps.
It'd be like walking into Dexter's playground, a total nightmare for Joe.
Yeah, Dexter wins that one. Easy. But, okay, last scenario. Something a little different. More intellectual, I guess.
Wait, are you thinking a library? A battle of the minds among all those books.
Exactly. Joe loves literature, sees himself as this romantic. Dexter, well, he plans everything, relies on research. A library could be like a mental chessboard for them.
I can see it now, leaving cryptic notes in books for each other. Using the Dewey Decimal System for secret codes. It'd be like a killer scavenger hunt.
Now that's interesting. Joe, he probably used charm, try and manipulate the situation. Dexter. He'd be using the library's resources to track Joe, predict what he'll do next.
Ooh, tough one. Who'd win that? A library's got so many hiding places, so many books. It could be anyone's game.
That's a good point. And it kind of sums up what we've been talking about. Joe and Dexter, they're complex. They've got good and bad. It's not simple to say who'd win. That's what makes them so well written, I think.
Yeah, they make you question things like what's good, what's evil. Love, obsession, justice, revenge. It all gets blurry with these two.
Right. They might be fictional, but they reflect real stuff. How people's minds work. They make us think about our own morals, you know. How complicated people are.
So yeah, maybe we'll never know for sure who'd win in a fight. But the real point is the talking about it, right? Exploring the dark side of things. Understanding why people do what they do.
That's what a deep dive's all about. Learning, questioning, seeing the world in a new way. Even the dark parts.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we'll leave you with this. Why are we so fascinated by serial killers anyway? What does that say about us? Think about it. And until next time, keep exploring and keep diving deep.